Hey everybody, Zach Arlen here from Detroit Speed, and today I'm here to show you guys Kevin Hart's 1969 GTO. We'll start out with some exterior details and all the stuff we did to the body of the car. First off, we have the hood tack. So originally the 1969 GTOs came with the hood tack, and that has been repurposed into the boost gauge for the supercharged LT5. We have the scoops on the hood, and that's one of the most subtle parts of this whole car. We actually had to lengthen the factory scoops to clear the supercharger. So we had to do that for extra clearance, but you would never even know it was there. As a lot of people know, the Endura bumpers created certain challenges for a lot of the GM vehicles of this era. So we actually changed out the Endura nose and we were using a Le Mans front bumper. So it's a steel bumper, and then we went ahead and we retrofitted all of the GTO flip-up headlight components into the Le Mans grille. And then we used a set of Holley retro brights for the lighting just to kind of update that. The custom work on the front end extends down from the bumper into the lower valence, where instead of the factory license plate opening, now we have a peak that kind of matches the bumper. We went ahead and we did these really cool little 3D printed bezels on the turn signals, and they've got the little heart logo in the center of them, just as a little shout out to the customer, Kevin Hart. And then we went ahead and we 3D printed these lower grille inserts, and if you look closely, they're actually a small replica of the factory GTO grille, which of course we have our little kind of gold detail painting inside that emblem on the front. Moving down the side of the car, one of the first things that you notice are the beautiful gold HRE wheels. They are 20 by 12 in the back and they're 20 by 10 in the front, and they're wrapped in Michelin tires. Moving further down the side of the vehicle, we have our bullet style GM mirrors. The originals were chrome. We decided to give it a little bit more of a modern touch with the body color bullet style mirror. And then we custom machined a billet lower bezel to replace the cheap plastic gasket that you normally find there against the body. Now on the doors, you guys will notice the doors and the trunk both have recessed trunk locks, and we went ahead with the black handles to kind of match the front and rear window trim. All that stuff is black Cerakoted for durability and to just kind of make it blend into the body while still have a little bit of contrast with the Mystic Brown paint that's on this one. Towards the rear of the car, if you guys look at the side markers, you'll have a little bit more of that gold detail painting. Tried to work touches throughout the interior, exterior, and engine bay, just kind of give it that little touch of gold throughout the car. And then on the very back of the car, we have the rear spoiler, and that's been a really subtle change as well. It's been widened to meet the exterior body line, and then the ends have been brought down a bit to kind of tighten up the gap and the fitment. Of course, we did the same thing to the rear bumper. We focused a lot on fitment, just like the rest of our builds, tightened up all the bumper gaps so that it was just nicely tailored to the body as opposed to the big gap from the factory. We did have a little bit of fun with the back of the car, and we worked in one last little detail, and that is the custom vanity plate that's been 3D printed, and the car's name is Droppa. As you know, Kevin Hart names all of his cars, and as for the name of this one, if you know, you know. Next thing we are going to do is move on to this beautiful interior from our friends from Avant Garde in Southern Florida. It all started out with a rendering from Tavis Highlander, and Avant Garde and their team did an amazing job turning that rendering into a reality. And the interior has been a bit polarizing for a lot of people at the shows. For the most part, people absolutely love it, and the quality is top notch. So it made a statement, and that's what it was all about. So starting with the dashboard, we have a custom set of gauges from Classic Instruments. We use Classic for all of our gauges, and if you look closely, there's a couple little Easter eggs hidden within the design around what we would consider all of the vitals for the engine. So your fuel, your temp gauge, your oil pressure. It's got a little heartbeat kind of worked in around the gauge design. And that's, you know, obviously a shout out to Kevin Hart and Heartbeat Productions. The last little touch that we wanted to work in there was we painted the needles on the gauges gold, obviously to match that reoccurring theme throughout the car. Moving out, you've got an I Did It steering column with a Spark Industries steering wheel. A lot of little custom painting touches to make this thing match the interior. And then again, Avant Garde did a great job getting the leather wrap done on it. We have Ring Brothers levers on the steering column. And if you look at the controls in the dash, you can see our Vintage Air AC controls, along with our push button for the electric parking brake. We wanted to do something kind of cool with the key fob, so we added an extra detail, and Nate up in our engineering department 3D printed this fob for us, and it is based off of the supercharger on that LT5 powerhouse that is under the hood of this thing. We have our center mounted window switches along with our door lock switch. Now obviously no muscle car is complete without a Hurst shifter, so we made sure to install one, and then we went with a shift knob from our friend Mark Bowler at Bowler Performance Transmissions that we have coined the Bowler Sphere. So I don't know if that's going to be the official name on the website, but if not, I think we're starting something new. As for the rest of the upholstery, we went with our standard Recaro Specialist bucket seats. We use them on pretty much all of our builds. They're really comfortable. We have a custom covered suede headliner that matches the cream color of the leather throughout the interior. And then we have a nice little detail in the door panels, and if you look real closely, there's a nice little Detroit Speed and Engineering logo in there. And those are actually magnetic, so we can swap those out with different logos. There's one for the Plastic Cup Boys with Kevin Hart, and then we have a set for Avant Garde, obviously, since they did all the hard work in the interior. Lastly, on your way out of the car, you may notice that there is one more little Easter egg that we put in here, and we replaced the Body by Fisher logo, and it now says Body by Detroit Speed, because, well, we can't leave anything alone. So if you guys know Kevin Hart and you've been following along with his builds for any amount of time, you would know that he likes horsepower and he likes modern drivetrains. So that is why we went with a GM Performance LT5 crate engine in this car. It is backed by a Bowler Performance T56 Magnum transmission and a Detroit Speed Ford 9-inch rear end with a 382 rear gear ratio. So it is a lot of fun to drive on the street, and it's got a good balance of street manners and horsepower. We decided that the 755 horsepower that GM built the LT5 with was plenty for a street car. So the only thing that we did was we added a custom set of headers and a 3-inch stainless steel exhaust all the way through. At Detroit Speed, we use a less is more kind of motto when we're doing the engine compartments, but that doesn't mean that there is any shortage of custom metal fabrication throughout the engine bay. In this one, we have a custom built cold air intake tube that routes the filter into the front fender, so you're pulling air from the grill. And then we have a custom shroud built around the top of the supercharger to cover up a lot of the wiring from the coils and all the different sensors and electrical components on this engine. And then if you look closely at the top of the supercharger, you'll notice that that is the design that we took and we integrated into the key fob for the power locks. To round out the sheet metal work, we have a custom set of closeout panels up here in the front of the wheel tubs, as well as a custom radiator panel just to kind of hide everything and package it nice and neatly. So as many of you guys know, the LT5 from the factory was a dry sump engine from GM, which means that we had to make room for not only a oil tank, but a water tank as well for the cooling for the supercharger. So we went ahead and we cut out the corners of the wiper cowl and we used each side to house one of those tanks. So in the right front corner, you'll find the oil fill, the dipstick, and that oil tank is hidden there in the cowl. And then in the left side of the cowl, you'll see a cap, and that is the water tank for that supercharger. Now, because the LT5 and really any modern swap in general, it's got a lot of electronics. So we decided to give up the real estate that the original windshield wipers took up, and we hid all of the modules and computers inside the wiper cowl on this car, and then built this really cool custom cover panel just to seal everything off from the weather and make sure that everything stays nice and dry. So with any car with a bunch of horsepower, you have to have a way to stop it. So we did that using our Detroit Speed brake booster and master cylinder kit and big bare 15-inch rotors and XTR calipers. And I'm gonna tell you what, this thing stops as fast as it goes. So it wouldn't be Detroit Speed if we didn't put a really good suspension underneath this car. We started using the factory GTO frame, and we went ahead and installed our 595 front suspension module. So with that, obviously you get the tubular upper and lower control arms and a really nice set of JRI single adjustable coilovers. To complement the front suspension setup, in the rear we decided to go with a modified Quadralink using those same fantastic JRI shocks. If you guys would like to see more build photos of Kevin Hart's 1969 GTO or find more information about the build, go ahead and click on one of the links in our description below. Don't forget to like and follow Detroit Speed on social media, and I'll see you next time.